Have you ever had that strange, quiet moment where something just doesn't sit right? Not in a dramatic way, but like the soft hum of a question vibrating in the back of your mind? It's that eerie sensation that maybe, just maybe, everything you've come to believe about who you are, what the world is, how things work, might not be quite what they seem. You sip your coffee, scroll your phone, laugh with friends, make plans, hold grudges, dream about the future, all with the steady conviction that this reality you're moving through is solid and true. But what if it's not? What if you were told that the you behind your eyes, the one who's thinking these thoughts right now, isn't really what you think it is? That the things you touch, crave, fear, or love don't actually exist the way you believe they do? That the whole structure of your experience is like a house of mirrors, endlessly reflecting back illusions that feel real but vanish the moment you look too closely? It sounds like something out of a sci-fi thriller, doesn't it? But this isn't fiction. This is one of the most powerful and destabilizing teachings ever to emerge from the depths of the human mind. A truth whispered through generations of seekers, monks, philosophers, and wanderers who dared to peer behind the curtain of experience. This is the heart of Buddhist insight into what's called emptiness, a word that might make you think of a void, of nothingness or despair. But what if I told you it's the exact opposite? That emptiness, far from being dark or cold, is actually a doorway to freedom, to lightness, to a kind of unshakable clarity. Here at Wisdom's Solace, we don't shy away from the big questions. We lean into them. And today you're being invited to take a journey, one that might unsettle you, surprise you, even transform how you walk through your life. Because emptiness, or Śūnyatā as it's known in the ancient teachings, isn't about removing meaning from life. It's about removing illusion. And what's left once the illusions fade is something far more extraordinary than anything you could imagine. Let's start at the beginning, at the center of the storm. Let's look straight into the thing we take most for granted, the self. You wake up in the morning, stretch, yawn, and without thinking, you return to the same identity you wore yesterday. This is me, you think. I'm tired, I'm late, I need coffee, I'm stressed about that meeting, I'm excited about the weekend. Every thought hinges on the idea that there's a stable I in the middle of all of it, something that persists from moment to moment, experience to experience, something that owns your thoughts, your feelings, your body. But if you slow down just for a moment and begin to examine it, where is that self? Not metaphorically, literally. Where is it? Try to find it. Look in the body. Is it in the chest? The brain? Somewhere behind your eyes? Is it the voice in your head, narrating your life? Or is it the memories you carry, the personality you've developed, the roles you play? The Buddha, sitting beneath a tree over 2,000 years ago, saw through this illusion with piercing clarity. He said the world is empty, not of beauty, not of experience, but of a self and of anything belonging to a self. He wasn't trying to be poetic. He meant it literally. Think of it like listening to music. You hear the melody, you feel the rhythm, maybe you even get goosebumps. But the music isn't one thing. It's not in the instrument alone, or the performer, or the sound waves. It arises from a magical convergence of all these elements, a delicate, precise coming together of causes and conditions. Remove one, and the music ceases. Now apply that to you. You are not a thing. You are not a solid, fixed identity. You are a song, a constantly shifting, unfolding performance composed of sensations, perceptions, thoughts, memories, biology, environment, relationships, culture, language, and more. You are the result of causes and conditions that stretch back through time in every direction. You are a process, not a product. To really feel this, think of a rainbow. It arcs across the sky, stunning and vibrant, and you instinctively feel it's there. But where is it actually? Can you go to it, touch it, hold it? No matter how close you get, it eludes you. It's real, but not real the way a rock or a tree is real. It's a phenomenon that appears when sunlight, moisture, and the right angle of observation combine. Take any of these away, and the rainbow disappears, just like you. But does this make it meaningless? On the contrary, it's what makes it beautiful. The rainbow's fleeting nature, its dependency on context, is what gives it its shimmering, sacred quality. The same is true of you. Your identity is not an object to be grasped. It's an event to be experienced. And this realization, it's not meant to unsettle you. It's meant to free you. Think of how much suffering is tied to the idea of a fixed self. You're told to find yourself, to be yourself, to love yourself. But which self? The one that felt brave yesterday and anxious today? The one who was heartbroken last year and in love again now? The one who regrets that mistake, or the one who's proud of your growth? You see, the tighter we cling to this idea of a solid me, the more we suffer. Every insult feels personal. Every failure becomes a wound. Every fear is magnified. But when you see the self for what it is, a fluid appearance, like a dream character that fades with the morning light, suddenly you can let go. You're not boxed in anymore. You're free to change, to evolve, to let moments come and go without needing to define you. And if the self isn't solid, what about the world around you? What about the things you desire, fear, grasp for, or run from? Here's where it gets even more fascinating. Take this video, for instance, the one you're watching right now on Wisdom Solace. You might think of it as a thing, a video. But what is it really? It's a voice reading a script. It's pixels lighting up your screen. It's sound waves, digital signals, coding, concepts, and ideas. It's your thoughts interpreting those ideas. It's the culture you grew up in that makes those interpretations possible. So, where is the video? Is it in the sound, the screen, the meaning, the speaker, the platform? It's all of these, and none of them. Because the video, like everything else, is empty of inherent existence. It arises only in dependence on countless conditions. Now picture yourself sitting at your favorite restaurant, enjoying a perfect meal. Maybe it's a bowl of pasta, rich with aroma, flavor, and comfort. Seems real enough, right? But pause. That meal is the result of so many interconnected threads. Farmers who grew the wheat, the water that nourished the plants, the people who harvested them, the chef's skill, the recipe's cultural lineage, the delivery trucks, the economy, your hunger, your taste memories, the lighting in the restaurant, your mood. It's not a thing. It's a process, a happening, a constellation of factors that, for a moment, give rise to what we call a meal. Everything you experience is like this. Every object, every thought, every moment. They're not things in the traditional sense. They're appearances, real in their effect, but not real in the way we imagine them to be. And once you see that, a remarkable transformation begins. The world doesn't become less vivid. It becomes more so. You stop trying to possess what can't be held. You stop fearing the loss of what was never yours to begin with. And in that space, there's peace, a soft, quiet kind of freedom, the kind that doesn't need to prove itself. And perhaps most importantly, you begin to see not only how empty things are, but how profoundly connected they are, like music, like rainbows, like you. So you're sitting there letting it sink in that maybe everything you've ever taken as solid and dependable is more like a dance than a structure. more like wind than stone. And the more you lean into this possibility, the more you start to notice little cracks in the illusion. Moments that used to seem so predictable start to shimmer with a kind of mystery. You look at your own hand and you wonder, not in some spaced out way, but in a deeply sincere way. What is this really? You move your fingers. You see the skin, the fine lines, the movement of muscle and bone. You feel sensation, pressure, warmth. But where's the hand in all this? Is it the skin, the bones, the feeling, the concept of my hand, the memory of its use? It starts to become difficult to pin down. And this isn't some mental trick. It's not philosophy for the sake of argument. This is the beginning of a very real unraveling. That unraveling is what the Buddha pointed to, not just with his words, but with his life. A prince who left behind comfort to seek the truth, not because he wanted answers, but because he saw suffering everywhere. Aging, sickness, death, confusion, loss, fear. And he knew something had to be done, not out there, but inside. He walked into the forest not to escape, but to see more clearly. And what he saw was staggering. He saw that suffering, dukkha, wasn't random. It wasn't just bad luck. It was woven into our misunderstanding of reality. And at the heart of that misunderstanding was the belief in a fixed self, moving through a fixed world, trying desperately to hold on to things that, by their very nature, cannot be held. Everything changes. Everything. Your body, your thoughts, your relationships, your status, your dreams, even your sense of time, place, and reality. And yet we keep trying to anchor ourselves in a sea that never stops moving. No wonder we feel anxious. No wonder we feel afraid. We're clinging to waves. But there's another way. Instead of fighting the current, what happens if you let yourself float? Instead of pretending that the self is a rock, what if you let it be what it is? A river. This doesn't mean becoming passive. It doesn't mean giving up on life. In fact, it means the opposite. When you stop clutching so hard, you're finally free to live. Not through effort and control, but through openness. You begin to dance with experience rather than wrestle it to the ground. This is what emptiness makes possible. It's not nihilism, it's not despair, it's liberation. Imagine this. You're standing in front of someone who just insulted you. Maybe they said something cruel. Maybe they questioned your worth. Your old instinct would be to defend, to push back, to armor up. How dare they, you think? They don't know me. And underneath that, a trembling fear that maybe, just maybe, they're right. But now from this new perspective, something different happens. You start to see that their words aren't about you. Not really, they're coming from their own pain, their own conditioning, their own momentary storm. And you, that solid self they were talking to, you begin to see that it's not so solid after all. There's space around it now. Breathing room. You realize that the insult has nowhere to land. Not because you've built thicker armor, but because the thing the insult was aiming for doesn't exist the way you thought it did. The bullet flies and passes right through. Not out of indifference, out of understanding, and with that comes compassion. Because just as you are not fixed, neither are they. They are not the enemy. They are a river too, flowing, struggling, trying to make sense of a world that often makes none. And when you see that, you soften, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. This is where emptiness leads, not to isolation, but to deep connection. Not to apathy, but to love. Because when things are empty, they are open. And when they are open, anything is possible. Even healing, even forgiveness, even peace. Now take a look at desire, that pull in your chest, that grasping, that urge to have or to be something other than what is. What happens when you look at it with this lens? Let's say you crave something, a new phone, a relationship, a promotion, attention, respect. That craving feels urgent. It says, if I get this, I'll be whole. But if you pause, if you really sit with it, you'll see the craving is built on the assumption that something's missing, that you are incomplete, and that whatever it is you're reaching for has the power to complete you. But where is this you that's incomplete? Can you find it? And where is this thing that will make it whole? Once again, both dissolve under examination. The desire isn't rooted in truth, it's rooted in illusion. But again, don't mistake this for cynicism. This isn't about becoming detached or cold, it's about becoming clear. When desire is seen for what it is, an arising thought, a conditioned habit, it loses its grip. And then you're free to enjoy without addiction, to love without fear, to act without needing a reward. It's like waking up from a dream, not because the dream was bad, but because real life is waiting. And the most beautiful part? You don't have to change anything externally to begin this awakening. You don't need to go to a mountain. You don't need to shave your head or learn Sanskrit. You don't need to chant or sit cross-legged for hours. Those things can help, sure, but they're not the point. The point is right here. It's in the way you look at your morning routine. It's in the way you listen to someone speak. It's in the way you pause before reacting. In the way you feel your breath. In the way you question what you once assumed. In the way you ask, who is experiencing this right now? And then watch as the answer slips away. That's slipping? That's not failure. That's the doorway. The mind wants something to hold on to. It wants a name, a concept, a definition. But awareness is deeper than thought. It doesn't need a label, it simply is. Like the sky, like space, this is what the Buddha realized under the Bodhi tree, that awareness itself is not owned. It's not yours, it's not you, it's not even a thing. It's the clear, knowing presence in which all things arise and pass away. Thoughts come and go, emotions rise and fall, sensations flicker in and out. But that knowing remains. That awareness is not a person, it's not a self, it's not something you can lose or gain. It's already here, always. And when you rest in that, even for a moment, you touch something timeless, something beyond suffering, beyond striving, beyond even the idea of enlightenment. It's not a destination, it's not a reward for good behavior, not as an idea, but as a felt reality. Washing the dishes while feeling each drop, it's what you are, before you believed you were anything else. Imagine living from that place, hearing someone's story without needing to fix or compare, feeling anger rise and fall like a wave, without being swept away. Being fully present with someone you love, knowing that nothing needs to be said or done. This is not about escaping life, it's about entering it more fully than ever before. Because once you see that things are empty of fixed identity, you also see that they're full of life, full of possibility, full of depth. Every leaf, every breath, every passing face on the street becomes sacred, not because they belong to you or mean something or fulfill some purpose, but because they are, because they appear briefly, miraculously, and then vanish, just like you, just like this moment. And in that vanishing, in that appearing and disappearing, something eternal shines through. Not a thing, not a self, but a stillness that holds it all, a silence that is never broken, a peace that doesn't depend on conditions. And that is the truth. You're walking down a quiet street one evening, just after the sun has dipped behind the skyline. The air is cool and there's that gentle hush that only shows up when the world seems to exhale all at once. A breeze nudges the trees and somewhere in the distance, a dog barks once, then falls silent. You look around and feel that strange sense again, that echo of something ancient, something just out of reach. It's not loud, it's not urgent, but it's there. And in that silence, a question begins to stir, not with words, but with feeling. A wondering, what is all this really? Who is it that's walking right now? Who is aware of this moment? You've probably heard people say, live in the present or be here now. But few talk about what that actually means, how slippery it really is. Because the present, it doesn't stay still. The second you try to grasp it, it's gone. You reach for now and it becomes then. You chase a moment and it dissolves. But there's something deeper here, something worth following. Let's start with time. We move through life as though time is a straight line, past behind us, future ahead, and here we are in the middle, trying to hold it all together. But when you actually look, when you bring your full awareness into the fabric of your experience, you realize something wild. You've never actually touched the past or the future. All you've ever known is this unfolding now. Memory is just a thought appearing in the present. Imagination? Same. Even planning, anticipating, regretting. It's all happening right now. There is no other time to be in. The idea of time, that's a story told by the mind. And yet, we live as if the past is a weight we have to carry, and the future is a test we have to pass. What if you put it all down? What if you stop trying to fix the past or perfect the future, and instead you drop so deeply into this breath, this sound, this flicker of sensation, that the rest of it just floated away? That's not escapism. That's waking up. Because when you drop into the raw, unfiltered reality of this moment, you begin to see clearly. You begin to see how much of your suffering is built not from what is, but from what your mind adds on top of what is. A headache is just a sensation until the mind says, this shouldn't be happening. Rain is just water falling until the mind says, this ruins everything. A breakup is just a change in connection until the mind says, I'll never be loved again. Can you see it? The pain isn't just from the thing, it's from the story we weave around the thing. And when you start to see that, even a little, you begin to unravel the threads. You begin to notice that thoughts aren't facts, that feelings aren't commands, that reality is simpler, quieter, more fluid than you ever imagined. And here's where the beauty of emptiness truly begins to shine. Because once you see that things don't exist the way you thought they did, that they're not fixed, not permanent, not independent, you realize something else. They're not as threatening either. They're not as heavy. That argument you had 5 years ago, it doesn't define you. That label someone gave you, it's just a sound. That role you think you have to play, it's just a costume. And like any costume, you can take it off. In the space that remains, there's room. Room for new responses, room for forgiveness, room for quiet joy. Imagine walking through your day like that. Not guarded, not trying to be someone, not trying to impress or defend or cling. Just present, just aware. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care more deeply, more freely. Because now you're not protecting a fragile ego. You're moving with the flow of life itself. You see someone struggling and you don't need to judge or fix them. You just meet them as they are, not as a concept, as a living, breathing miracle unfolding in front of you. You see a flower in bloom and it hits you. It won't last. It can't last. But instead of clinging or mourning, you feel gratitude. Because its impermanence is what makes it beautiful. You feel sadness rise in your chest and you don't fight it. You breathe with it. You let it speak. You hold it gently like you would a child. And before you know it, it shifts. Not because you forced it, but because you allowed it. This is what life starts to feel like when the illusion of permanence begins to fade. It's like seeing everything in high definition. the texture of the world becomes richer. Even the mundane moments carry depth. Folding laundry becomes a meditation. A phone call becomes a sacred exchange. Waiting in traffic becomes a place to rest rather than resist. Because nothing needs to be different for you to be whole. There's a moment that comes for many on this path. It's subtle, but unmistakable. You're sitting in silence, maybe watching your breath or the play of light on a wall, and suddenly, for just a second, the usual noise fades. The need to label, to analyze, to narrate, stops. And what remains? Just this, just awareness, not aimed at anything, not seeking, just present. And in that moment, you realize there's no you doing anything. There's no thinker behind the thought, no watcher behind the eyes. Just this seamless field of experience, rising, falling, empty of a center, full of aliveness. You don't disappear, you become vast. And with that comes the sweetest surprise. There's nothing to prove, nothing to fix, nothing missing. Because the you that was always chasing completion, it was never solid to begin with. It was a mirage, a character in a story. And now the story is being rewritten, not with words, but with silence. A silence that holds everything, a silence that judges nothing. It's easy to miss this in the noise of everyday life. The world pulls you back into your roles, your routines, your dramas. But once you've glimpsed that stillness, it never really leaves you. It lingers, it whispers, it invites you back. Sometimes in the space between thoughts, sometimes in a stranger's eyes, sometimes in the quiet just before sleep. It's always there, waiting, and it doesn't need you to believe in it. It doesn't need you to understand it. It just is. And when you rest in that isness, without needing to call it anything, you discover the true meaning of peace. Not the peace of having no problems, but the peace of not needing anything to be different. That's the gift of emptiness. It strips away the lies, not to leave you bare, but to show you that what's underneath was never broken. It was always whole, always shining, always free, and it's still here. In this breath, in this pause, in this moment of listening, right now. There comes a point in your journey where you stop trying to find the answers and begin to appreciate the questions themselves. Not out of defeat, not because you've given up, but because you realize the questions are alive. They breathe, they shift and stretch, and invite you into a deeper intimacy with the present moment. You stop needing everything to be neat and start allowing things to be real. And in that shift, something subtle happens. The world, once hardened into categories and names and roles, begins to soften. It becomes less of a map and more of a landscape. Less about knowing where you're going and more about experiencing where you are. You wake up one morning and maybe the light hits the wall just right. Maybe there's a quiet in the room that feels deeper than silence. And without planning or effort, there's a pause in the usual rush. You're not thinking about what needs to be done or what didn't happen yesterday. You're just there, fully, breathing, noticing, and you realize this is it. This is what they've been talking about all along. This is the freedom that isn't somewhere else, someday later. It's always been right here, but you were too busy chasing some idea of happiness to see it. And then, like a breeze moving through open curtains, a deeper understanding drifts in. That all the grasping, all the reaching, all the fear and craving, it was built on a misunderstanding. You thought you were a separate someone in a world full of other someones, all scrambling to survive, to win, to matter. But now the boundaries don't seem so fixed. The edges blur. The you you've been trying to protect starts to dissolve. Not in a scary way, but like ice melting in sunlight. What's left is spaciousness, awareness, presence without tension. love without agenda. You're not disappearing, you're expanding. And as the self you thought you were starts to loosen its grip, you begin to see others differently too. The cashier who barely looked at you, the stranger on the bus, the coworker who talks too much, all of them once part of the background, now become vivid, complex, sacred. You start to feel their presence, not just as roles they play in your story, but as full expressions of life, just like you. You see the way they reach for comfort, avoid pain, hope to be seen, and your heart, no longer barricaded by identity, begins to open, not with sentimentality, but with truth, with clarity, with quiet compassion. There's a particular kind of stillness that grows in you when you stop trying to be somebody. It's not laziness, it's not passivity, it's the opposite of hiding. It's presence so complete that there's no need to prove or defend or define. You walk through a crowd, and instead of scanning for approval or comparison, you just feel the air on your skin. You hear the sound of feet on pavement, voices merging and parting like waves. You are in the world, but not possessed by it. Experience flows through you. Nothing sticks. Nothing lingers longer than it needs to. Even your emotions, once seen as permanent landmarks, begin to move differently. Sadness shows up, and instead of bracing against it or dramatizing it, you let it be. You sit with it like you would with a tired friend. No fixing, no pushing it away, just presence, and when it's ready, it leaves. Joy comes too, and you don't try to hoard it or stretch it into forever. You just breathe with it. You let it fill the room, and then, like everything else, you let it go. There's a grace in this rhythm, a wisdom in knowing that nothing belongs to you, not because you don't matter, but because you're not separate from the flow. You are the flow. And then there's thought, the constant commentator, the endless narrator of your life. You've probably taken it for granted, assumed it was you speaking, but now you begin to notice the space between thoughts, the stillness that doesn't argue or explain, the awareness that hears the thought but isn't the thought. You start to see how much of your identity was built from recycled ideas, opinions borrowed from others, judgments absorbed from childhood, plans inherited from fear, but none of it is solid. None of it is ultimately true. And in that realization, a door swings open. You start to wonder, not intellectually, but in your bones. What am I really if I'm not these stories? If I'm not my past, not my roles, not even my preferences and fears? And instead of rushing to replace the old story with a new one, you let the question hang. You let it breathe. You let yourself not know. That not knowing becomes your refuge. Because inside it, there's room to see clearly. There's space for life to surprise you. You begin to meet the world with fresh eyes, with a softness that is both vulnerable and strong. You stop needing to be right. You stop needing to win, and the world responds. Not always kindly, not always gently, but it responds with truth, with echoes of the same emptiness that lives in you. A friend disappoints you, and instead of closing off, you open. You feel the sting, yes, but you don't let it define them. Or you. A plan falls apart, and instead of spiraling into self-blame or panic, you pause. You notice your breath. You let the moment reshape itself without resistance. This is what freedom looks like. Not control, not perfection, but intimacy. Intimacy with reality as it is. There's a kind of joy that arises when you no longer need the moment to be different than it is. It's not loud. It's not ecstatic. It's the quiet joy of nothing missing. The joy of being able to look at a sky without naming it, to hear a bird without turning it into a metaphor, to feel your own heartbeat and not need to explain why you're here. That kind of joy doesn't depend on getting what you want. It doesn't come from achieving or accumulating. It comes from releasing, from letting go, from remembering what you are beyond all the layers. And all of this shift in seeing, this unwinding of the self, this falling away of illusion, it doesn't happen once. It's not a single awakening and then you're done. It's a pathless path, a return that happens again and again, deeper each time. Some days it's clear. Some days you forget. Some days you get caught in the story again, and that's okay, because even forgetting is part of remembering. Even the most contracted moment carries a seed of freedom. Even confusion can point the way home. And so you walk, not towards something, but with something. A quiet knowing, a presence that was always there, waiting beneath the noise. You carry it into your daily life, not as a philosophy, but as a way of being. Washing dishes becomes a prayer. Waiting in line becomes a meditation. Conflict becomes a mirror. Every moment becomes a doorway, not to escape, but to enter more deeply. You don't need to be extraordinary. You don't need to be enlightened. You just need to be here, really here, in this breath, in this body, in this unfolding now. And from this place, this stillness, this silence, this space where nothing sticks and everything flows, your life begins to flower. Not into something flashy or dramatic, but into something real, something grounded, something luminous. You become the kind of presence that calms the room without saying a word. You become the eye of the storm, not because you're trying to be peaceful, but because you've stopped fighting reality. You've stopped trying to control what was never yours to control. You've stopped trying to fix what was never broken. You've stopped trying to become what you already are. And in that stopping, in that letting go, you begin to live. There's something almost poetic about how quietly truth reveals itself. Not in grand gestures or lightning strikes, but in the smallest, most overlooked corners of life. It's in the way sunlight filters through dusty curtains, or how a child stares at nothing and smiles, lost in a world untouched by language or expectation. It's in the silence after laughter, in the pause between heartbeats, in the moments we don't notice until we're no longer chasing something else. You start to see that the truth doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to convince or dominate. It's patient, gentle. It waits for you to slow down, to stop looking outward long enough to feel inward. And when you do, even briefly, it speaks, not in words, but in presence. The journey you're on isn't about becoming something else. That's the greatest trick the mind plays. That who you are isn't enough. That you need to improve, upgrade, evolve into something more valuable, more enlightened, more worthy. But what if that was all a distraction? What if you've been whole this entire time and the work isn't in becoming, but in remembering? In peeling back the noise, the conditioning, the layers that told you your value is in your doing, your titles, your image. When you start to let go of those stories, not out of rejection, but out of compassion, you begin to sense the ground beneath it all. You begin to come home. And home isn't a place, it's not a destination. It's a recognition, a shift from searching to seeing, from doing to being, from controlling to allowing. And it doesn't look like anything special from the outside. You might still go to the same job, talk to the same people, sit in the same room, but inside everything's changed. There's a spaciousness now, a tenderness. You don't react as quickly. You listen more. You don't fill the silence just to avoid it. You begin to trust that what arises in stillness is worth meeting. People will still misunderstand you. Life will still bring its chaos. But you'll carry a new kind of strength, not one built on resistance or defense, but on openness, on clarity. And because you're no longer holding on so tightly to who you think you are, You can move through the world more freely. You can say, I don't know without shame. You can be wrong without falling apart. You can sit with someone's pain without needing to fix it, because you've started to sit with your own. You've learned that discomfort isn't the enemy. That sadness doesn't mean something's broken. That joy doesn't need to be earned. And with that, your definition of love changes. It's no longer something to possess or chase. It's not about being completed by someone else. Love becomes less of a transaction and more of a state of presence, a way of being. You start to see love in unexpected places, in the quiet patience of a friend who listens without interrupting, in the way you offer yourself rest when the world tells you to hustle, in the forgiveness that arises when you realize everyone is carrying something you can't see. Love becomes the thread that connects everything, not as an idea, but as a lived truth. You stop asking life to be fair. You stop needing it to match your expectations. And in that surrender, a deeper joy surfaces, the kind that isn't dependent on what's happening, the kind that holds both laughter and tears in the same breath, the kind that knows how fleeting it all is and loves it more because of that. You walk outside and feel the wind on your skin, and for once, that's enough. You notice the way your breath moves in and out, and you don't rush past it. You begin to inhabit your body not as a project, but as a sanctuary, a temple of sensation and life and mystery. Even your pain starts to feel different. It's still there. It still aches, but now it has room to move. You're not bracing against it, not building stories around it, not using it to define yourself. You just let it be there. You breathe with it. You notice where it lives in your body. You listen to what it's trying to say. And slowly, something shifts. Not because you pushed, but because you stayed. Because you brought the light of awareness to what was once hidden in shadow. And that's when you start to see how rare and beautiful it is to simply be here. To be awake in the middle of this strange, messy, miraculous experience called life. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to have a plan. You just need to show up, fully, honestly, softly, again and again, in the face of uncertainty, in the face of heartbreak, in the face of beauty so overwhelming it makes your chest ache. You start to realize that presence is the ultimate act of courage. To stop running, to stop numbing, to feel fully, to let life break your heart open instead of harden it. That's not weakness, that's strength. The quiet, steady strength of someone who has nothing left to protect and everything left to love. There's no arrival point, no final destination where you'll be done and perfect and untouched by struggle. That's not what this is about. This is about depth, about meeting yourself over and over, more honestly each time. It's about letting your edges soften, letting your armor drop, letting the river of life move through you without needing to control the current. And every time you forget, every time you fall back into the story, the illusion, the grasping, that's okay. That's part of it too. There's no failure in forgetting, only another opportunity to return, to begin again, to come back to the breath, to come back to now, to come back to the silence beneath the noise. Because that silence, that stillness, that's where you meet yourself. Not the self built on accomplishments and appearances, but the self that was always there, watching, waiting, loving. The self that isn't separate from the trees, the sky, the stranger walking by. The self that knows there's no such thing as other, only reflections, only different expressions of the same light. And once you see that, really see it, you can never unsee it. The world becomes your teacher. Every moment becomes your practice. Every encounter becomes sacred, not because it's all easy, but because it's all alive. You find yourself crying without needing a reason, laughing at the absurdity of your own mind, sitting in silence and feeling more full than you ever did chasing success. You stop needing to be understood, and in that freedom, you understand others more. You see the masks they wear and love them anyway. You see the masks you used to wear and thank them for trying to protect you. And then you let them go. You let it all go, not to escape, but to finally arrive. And there you are, here, alive, whole, already. Somewhere along the path, when the noise softens and the striving fades, you realize that the search you've been on, the desperate search to feel complete, to feel enough, to feel seen, was never leading you away from yourself. It was always circling back, inviting you again and again to the very place you were standing. It's strange how far we'll go to escape what's already within us, how much energy we spend trying to find outside what has been silently resting inside, patiently waiting to be noticed. And it doesn't come with fireworks. It comes like a soft breath, a gentle reminder, a whisper that says, you were never lost. You begin to trust stillness, not just in meditation or in quiet rooms, but in the middle of everything. When a conversation pauses and the silence stretches long, you no longer feel the need to fill it. When something beautiful happens and words can't capture it, you don't try to explain. You just let it be beautiful. When pain rises and you have no answers, you sit with it. You breathe with it. You let it speak its language without trying to translate. There's a sacredness in this kind of presence, a reverence for what is. And the more you let yourself rest in it, the more the world starts to open in unexpected ways. You begin to notice things that used to pass by unnoticed. The rhythm of footsteps on pavement, the quiet strength in someone's eyes, the way sunlight dances on the surface of water, or how your chest subtly expands with every breath. It's as if the entire world has been waiting for you to look up, to pause, to see, not just with your eyes, but with your whole being. And when you do, it's overwhelming in the best way. You realize how much beauty there is in the ordinary, how many miracles you've missed while chasing something grand. Even your inner world becomes less of a battlefield and more of a sanctuary. Thoughts still come and go, but they're no longer in charge. You start to see them like weather, passing storms, drifting clouds, bursts of sunlight. You don't believe every story they tell. You don't obey every command. You don't resist them either. You just watch. You let them move through, knowing that you are not the thought, not the emotion, not the fear. You are the sky that holds it all, the awareness that notices but does not cling. And it's in this space, this unhurried presence, that you start to meet yourself more honestly than ever before. Not the version of you that's polished for the world, but the raw, tender, vulnerable self. The one who has been carrying so much for so long. The one who tried to be strong, tried to be perfect, tried to be lovable by being what others needed. And when you meet this self, not with judgment, but with compassion, something begins to heal. Not through effort, not through fixing,